Now we're back to HTML canvas. Let me show you how we can apply loops to what we draw on our canvas. Again, we'll start with a blank one, canvas cdx, and now we'll use cdx.fillRect. Already know that x position, y position, width and height. Let me directly give it some values like 5, 5, 50, 50. So position is 5 in x and y, and 50 is width, 50 is height. Now we can use a variable to adjust these positions. For example, variable 1 for x position and variable 2. And if we apply a loop, we can adjust the value of our variable. And this would help us in creating multiple of these objects with just one fillRect. So what would that look like? Let me first use the y value. I'm going to make it 5 times I. I is our variable that we want to create and use in our for loop. I call this outer loop. Just a typical structure in JavaScript. I have to paste my fillRect inside. Now we'll define I as let I equals 0. Then we want to have it for as long as it is smaller than, let's say, 8. And for every iteration it should increase by 1. So I++. And if I refresh it, you can see this now gets added. It's 5 plus 0, then 5 plus 1, 5 plus 2, and so forth. As our height is 50, our rectangles overlap. So I have to definitely make this bigger than just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let us make it 5 plus I times 50. They still overlap because it's a little bit too big. Let me go down to 5. So that we have 5 in total. You can see it gets smaller. So in principle we have 5 for the y position. Next iteration will be 5 plus 1 times 50, so it will be 55. Then 5 plus 2 times 50, so 105, and so forth. And I have the 5 added so that I'm a little bit away from the top frame. Let me make this 100, and now we can finally see the gaps. I'll make it only 4 rectangles. Let me make it 80. The 5th one would fit now. And this is how you can achieve this effect. So you don't have to draw them all. And if we now want to have the x-axis also filled with them, we just use an inner loop. It uses the same principle. The outer one was for the y position, inner one should be for x position. So here, this is nested in the first for loop. I'll paste my fillRect inside of the inner loop. And now I'll have to use a different variable name. Let us call it let j equals 0. Once again, j smaller 5 and j++. Now we'll add that to our x position, which was the first one in our fillRect. So 5 plus j times 80. And now we have x and y position fully filled in our canvas. Nested loops are a little bit hard to understand if you're totally new to programming, but over time you'll understand the principle and then it becomes fairly easy. Let me adjust the values a little bit so that it fits my canvas. It has a width of 400, height 400. So make width and height 40. Position adjustment, variable times 50. And I want to have 8, because 8 times 50 is 400. And you can see now this is perfectly covered. And width is only 40 because we have to add the gap of 5 to each. And now this is perfectly covered. We can use the same principle also to adjust the color. We can use CDX fill style, but in this case you can't just add the RGB and add a color. You have to use a different way of formatting it. First up, you need to nest this RGB into backticks. Backticks, I can find them on my keyboard on the top right, next to my delete button. So maybe you can find it there too. Just hold shift, click on it, then nest the RGB, and you can see this is now added to our fill rect, and it is added to each one that we create using the loop. And if we now use the variables to adjust the value of the RGB, we can even give all of these rectangles a different color. We can't just add 200 times I, because I only goes from 0 to 8. That's not much of a difference, because the RGB values only go from 0 to 255. So first value here would be 0, second one 200, third one already 400, and that doesn't fit anymore. And secondly, we need another way of formatting it. So even if I make it 10 times I, it would go from 0 to 70, still doesn't work. A good way to play around with it is to add an X value. Let me, for example, use, I don't know, 50 would be too high, but maybe 20. This would be better, but as I've said, we need a different way of formatting it. Same reasoning applies though, so we keep that, but instead we now add a $sign, curly brackets, and then we nest it inside. Later on, we will use values with digits after the comma, so let me directly use mathfloor, which is going to round it down. And now if I refresh it, you can see it accepts our color value, and the color changes as we go through the loop, so for each iteration there's a different color. You can also see that the color only changes in the y-axis, so top is lighter than bottom, but it doesn't change from left to right. This is because we haven't yet used the j variable, which is used in the inner loop for the x position. Let us add that to the second color of our RGB. I'll keep 100 for now as the third one, the blue, and now we have this effect. Let me make the blue 0, it gets a little bit lighter. And this is how you can add loops to your HTML canvas to create multiple objects. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.